Hey guys, Pete here. Alright, this is going to be my Game of Thrones Season 7, Episode 7, the season finale recap. I'm basically just going to do a breakdown here. I got to tell you up front though that I enjoyed this. I think they actually landed the plane. There was definitely some worries that I had, and a lot of people had been whining throughout the season about details and different things. And if you're in that boat, then you're probably not going to be, this video is probably not going to be for you, because I'm going to talk about what was good about this, and I'm going to be a fan because tonight when I watched this, I was exactly that. It's also a spoiler warning here. Obviously, if you haven't watched it, you're not going to want to watch this video because it will spoil it. So this is the longest episode of Game of Thrones ever. It didn't necessarily feel like that, but the one thing that I said just a moment ago was I think they landed the plane. And the way this all kind of worked in my head at the end was that I was engaged throughout. There were some pleasant surprises, even though this thing had been spoiled a million times over by the leak. And we got to the place where we knew we were headed, and we've always known we've been headed. And this really opens up something new. So as a fan, I'm excited because we don't know what's going to happen now. We just really don't. I mean, the White Walkers have breached the wall. They're moving south. It's freaking exciting. And we did lose stuff this season. Don't get me wrong. We lost some of the character development. We lost the travel. We lost a lot of things, and things moved too fast. I complained about that plenty. But here we are, and this is an example of the show doing what the show does well. So let's get through it, and let's see where we're at the end. So the big thing that I had been waiting for was this massive meeting of all the characters in the show basically at the Dragon Pit. For those of us that watched the filming spoilers pretty closely in the off-season, we knew this was going to go down, and it was unprecedented, and the people who were there, and it was just done well. I mean, I think that their idea of using this structure, a thing we've never seen on the TV show before, was a good choice because it put everybody, even though we were in King's Landing and there was definitely a home field advantage, it didn't feel like that. And one of those things that the show does well is that it always makes you feel like anyone could die at any time. And I was just kind of convinced that someone was going to randomly get killed during this scene because it was just set up well that way. At the same time, however, though, they were, it kind of felt like they might work this out. I mean, most of us didn't trust anything that Cersei might say, but it was a pretty convincing display whenever they actually presented the wight. I mean, the thing charged at her. The Hound cuts it in half. It doesn't die, even a little bit. It was awesome. Qyburn, was my favorite part of this because he was just sort of like, whoa, look at that. That thing is still, their fingers are still moving. And everyone that was there understood that the threat from the north is real. There's just a lot of cool moments here. Even the lead up, there were some awesome reunions, you know what I mean? Seeing Tyrion with Pod, then Brienne with the Hound, and then Tyrion with Bronn. I mean, this is good stuff. This is the stuff that we've been waiting for, right? And Euron calling out Theon, and that everyone was kind of like leaving their mark on this historic event in one way or another. Euron gets up and leaves after the display. Cersei agrees to this, but then she adds on top that she'll only do it if Jon agrees to stay out from now on, like he won't fight against her. And that's where we get the bomb of truth from Jon that he's already bent the knee to Daenerys, which didn't go over very well with anyone because no one was expecting it. All of that said, at the end we find out it's all fake anyways because the Euron leaving was set up and Cersei never, even after the whole thing of meeting with Tyrion and everything else, she never at any moment was going to go along with it. Like if you think about that scene closely, whenever she was giving up the tell of being pregnant, she didn't drink the wine, then she touches her stomach. It seemed odd, but it's not odd because she was doing that, like she played Tyrion in that scene. So all of what we saw, the whole thing, Daenerys' grand entrance, all of it was for naught because Cersei was never going to get on board. Her plan is, instead, to let everybody else go and slaughter whatever White Walkers they can, and whatever's left of either side, the crown will take them on because that'll be easier. Now, Jaime, who is, at this point, the only person she has left, can't even go along with her plan. Like, he can't even believe it. And there is a real moment here between these two because they both understand what a terrible idea it is to do what she's going to do. But where he says he can't do it, on the other side, she can't not do it. So that's really pretty fucking fantastic as far as I'm concerned. Like, it was hard to watch him leave. I believe that she thought about killing him, although she didn't. It was like, it was definitely set up well. So in the end, he goes off in the north, and we see the snow start to come down, and it's a really great scene where we see all of the, different shots of King's Landing with snow falling, and then we go up to the north. And I want to point out that whenever her and Tyrion had that conversation, Lena Headey pretty much owned the whole first half of this episode. She plays the despicable character that you can't help but be compelled by so well. Not to take away anything from Tyrion or Jaime, their acting was fantastic too, but this was really like a tour de force for the whole Cersei character, I think, because, like I said, she's completely despicable in what she does, but you kind of can't help but be compelled by the character. And it's not just like on an evil, like, I hate this character. It's sort of like, well, I kind of see how she got to that place. Not that it's excusable or anything else, but it's just, I don't know what other word to use besides compelling. Like, I just like to watch her act. Also, the Brienne thing was fantastic whenever she pulls Jaime up. This is the person who has the biggest connection to loyalty and keeping oaths and things like that. And she's the one that has to throw it back on Jaime, like, this is crazy, we can't do this. So you had these two characters, twins, lovers, the whole 9 yards, and Jaime finally has to break from her and head north. There we see that Sansa's still talking to Littlefinger, and it really starts to put some fear into me personally, but then we see how it all plays out, and I don't know. I think that this ended well. I don't think that it makes up for some of the awkwardness in the other Stark sister parts before this, but it ended well. We find out that they were working together. We see that it's not Arya that's in trouble whenever they call it. It's actually Littlefinger who they're trying for treason and murder. And I have to say, I got a new... obviously Littlefinger's always been an awesome character, but I got a new respect for Sansa as a character because we see how she did pick up all this stuff from him, and while he's doing his thing, she just rebuts each one perfectly. And it was a trip to see when they first brought Arya in, and we see the full-grown Sansa and the full-grown Bran sitting at the table in their family's great hall. It was pretty good, and Arya was a little bit ruthless, and that's the way she should be, but I think that all got kind of better whenever they had that personal moment later. Like, that was the one thing I was sort of like, okay, well, of course he has to die, of course this should go down this way, but I hope they don't keep Arya in this strange world of, like, being only an assassin, because she's a character that has a lot of depth. She's had a lot of things and can bring a lot to the story. And so whenever I saw the two sisters together later, that really worked things out, I would say. But yeah, Sansa did a great job here. And one of the things I read earlier, it kind of cracked me up, was that as he was dying, Littlefinger looked like a robot that was breaking down or something along those lines. He was just sort of bouncing around. He's never been in this place. And he's just bouncing around from one thing to the other to try to get his way, to get himself out of trouble. And Sansa's there, and she doesn't bend. She has her family there backing her up, and it was pretty good. Let's be honest, that was pretty good. I think it came off well, and the story will miss Littlefinger, but you could see that we're moving into a different phase, and the skills he had and what he brought to this story is pretty much unimportant at this point. Do you know what I mean? Like, he was good at playing the game of Thrones, and we heard Sansa point this out as the whole thing's going down. That really doesn't matter anymore. The White Walkers are coming, and they're going to kill everyone regardless of anything else. Doesn't matter. And so his character really isn't essential to anything else moving forward because politics are kind of out the window at this point. So we do also get a real big dose of the wolf and the dragon, or the dragon and the wolf, I should say. Ice and fire come together, not just Dany and Jon. As Sam arrived, they have this great back and forth with Bran, which also kind of saved Bran, I think. I don't know what you guys think, but I thought that Bran was way more human here. his deadpan was funny instead of just creepy, you know, when he said, I remember everything about Sam. And then whenever Sam said, you know, did you see that in the flames? Like he was all giddy because he thought he could see this, that Jon was coming, and he just sort of shows him the scroll that they received, you know what I mean? Like I don't know if it was just this director did a better job than the other directors did or what, but this worked. We got the Rhaegar Lyanna flashback, which wasn't a big surprise to anyone at this point. We had already heard that they were married. It was cool to see. It was a little bit awkward that they showed it as Daenerys and Jon were having sex for the first time. It was a weird juxtaposition of like, you know, something that we all, like people who have been reading the books and watching the shows and really been into this whole lore of everything about the Song of Ice and Fire, you know what I mean? This was sort of like it was sort of odd how they put these two things together, but after the fact I was thinking, you know, it is the Song of Ice and Fire. We see those two coming together to the union that brought Jon into the world, and then we see Jon as a grown man and he's with his aunt. I know it's weird, but I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how they go beyond that. I would have liked to seen a little bit more of Rhaegar and Lyanna. It was pretty short, but it was what it was. It was, Bran basically explained it to people who might not know the story. Samwell was there to fill in the blanks about the annulment, and now we know that Jon is legitimately the best claim out of the Targaryen line, and that together they are the last Targaryens, not that Daenerys is the only Targaryen left. So yeah, I mean, I think as messed up as it all felt, it's about prophecy. It's about this idea. It's even at the underlying, one of the most poignant moments of the whole flashback is when Bran says, Robert's rebellion was about a lie. And that's true. But beyond that, everything Rhaegar did that led to that was based off of prophecy. And I think that is almost as important as anything else that we saw here. And yeah, it's hard to imagine not thinking about the fact that they're doing what they're doing. But you know what I mean? I think it does actually work. And if nothing else, it'll have people talking. That's for sure. And then the big exclamation point on the end of the sentence is obviously seeing Tormund and Beric on top of the wall and watching the White Walkers come. I had concerns about this. I was worried that if they just used the dragon, it might not make sense, but it kind of does now. I mean, I think it worked. Part of it is out of convenience, I would say, in that I think that in George R.R. Martin's version, we'll get Euron playing a big part and maybe some other characters playing a big part in this, whereas all of it just sort of got condensed down to where the Night King does it himself. So I think I'm okay with it, and I'll talk about it a little bit more, but it was really fantastic to watch. I mean, you can't be a fan of Game of Thrones and say that was not an impressive amount of... I mean, we never saw anything like that on TV before this show came into existence. So if you're like, well, it was okay, then you're probably just spoiled and you forget what TV was like before this happened, to be honest. And you're just looking for reasons to be salty because that's just what you do. I don't know, because it was amazing. And I mean, the season went all over the place. It wasn't clear if it was going to wrap up correctly or in a satisfying way, but it definitely did. I have no doubt people will complain about things because that's what people do, but this story has always been about that wall coming down and the dead. I mean, it's the winter is coming is the House Stark words. And what we saw in this episode was that without a doubt, winter is here. It's hard to say how things are going to move forward, but all the pieces are in place. I think what really is interesting is what I was talking about before, like about when I was talking about Littlefinger's death. I mean, all of this stuff that has been important, the political moves, the strategy on the different players in the game, it's all done now. Now it really is a fight for survival, and not just the survival of one house or the other, but of mankind. And that's what this has always been set up to be. And we did lose things in this season. We lost a lot based on the fact of the magical spectacle that is necessary to show that. And, you're not going to have anything be perfect, but I think this actually worked, and I think that it's cool. And the thing that I thought about with the dragon is that, the leaks kind of killed all of that. Instead of thinking about it and being surprised in the moment while watching, people sort of formed that idea. I know I did. Like, I thought that was just bullshit and it wasn't going to happen. And I just refused to believe that the leaks were real for a very long time. But when you see it in the context of how it was used, like, that isn't a dragon anymore. That's not Daenerys' dragon that died, that the Night King now has control over. That is an extension of the Night King's power. Whenever he raised Viserion back up, that became a part of this wave of terror that's coming into Westeros. And in that context, it works for me, and I'll be interested to see what you guys think. Some of my favorite parts were those reunions. It was just fantastic. Like I said, the acting was top notch. The dialogue was good. I just don't have anything I dislike about this episode. So make sure you let me know what you think. And if you're, like I said, if you're just like going to say stuff about details and other things, I mean, this story has changed into something else. But what I'm excited about as a fan of the show is seeing how this develops towards the end. And if you want to find things to be wrong, you'll always be able to find them. But we're at a pretty good point to be a fan of this show. So make sure you like the video if you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Make sure you turn on notifications. I'll be making GOT videos all through the year, so keep an eye out for those. Like my Facebook page and follow me on Twitter and all those other things. We can interact over there. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll talk to you soon.